everyone, my name is Cheese, and today we are going to be doing a tier ranking of The Amazing World of Gumball Season 4, Part 2. So today we will be covering episodes 22 through 40, so I will link it up in the cards for Part 1 if you have not seen it already, because it'd be helpful to know how we got here. But with all that being said, we're just gonna get straight into it because there is so much to talk about. Okay, so first off, we are gonna get all of my crashing out of the way with our first entry because in my notes, this is about like a page and a half of notes, like a bullet points just for this. So I think that says enough, but fuck this. No. Now, I will say, although we had to make the hell tier specifically for this one, because this wasn't in my last video, but it's important to know that I don't hate all of this. There's actually some parts of it that I really enjoy. It's just the overall picture of this is just fuckery, and I don't want to watch it. I just don't. Because the thing is, like, when I was younger, I don't think I ever really liked this one. Like, I never really did. But even though I was, like, expecting to be like, oh, I don't really like this, like, going into this on the revisit, it's somehow worse in a different way than I expected. Because going into this, I was fully prepared for this to be like 12 minutes of sexual harassment, which it is. But that's not my biggest issue with it, which is surprising. So I feel like the only way we can do this is just to go straight through the plot because, good lord. Because even just the opening scene, okay? Where Jamie just walks into the room, guns blazing, and decides to make everybody else miserable. In the most grotesque way possible, which I actually do enjoy this. I feel like Jamie is like low key my favorite part of this episode. Because I will tell you this. Out of everyone in this episode, I think she's the one that acts the most normal. Because this kind of set up as her being like this very intimidating menace of the school that nobody is gonna fuck with. I would argue like probably on the same level of as like Tina. It's kind of like nobody fucks with them by any means, so they'll just do whatever they say. Where she just walks in and like everyone, like specifically the food themed classmates, specifically like Anton and Banana Joe, just like offer themselves to her to eat. Like Banana Joe literally unpeels his banana peel and like offers it to her, and she takes a bite out of him. And then Anton makes himself into a sandwich, which Jamie then instructs, eat it yourself, and he just, I guess, cannibalizes himself. It's just like right out of the gate. It kind of sets the tone, and I will say that this opening scene is very good at setting the tone of what's gonna happen later. As we're just dealing with deranged fuckery just right off the bat, which I do enjoy. And then we get to the point where it's like the plot really takes off, or like the main conflict takes off. Is when Alan basically tells Jamie, you need more love in your heart than what you have now. Alan is the one to tell Jamie that you feel empty inside and you feel like you have to be so aggressive in everything to other people because you don't have enough love in your heart, and that's what you're missing in your life, pretty much. So this basically causes Jamie to have an epiphany, thinking that she needs to have a boyfriend, as like following Alan's advice. And I will say this, that I also really enjoy about this, is that Alan was the one to basically propel this plot. Because I just think it's an interesting choice. Like, yes, Alan would do that. Like, Alan is not really scared of Jamie in the sense that everyone else is, at least in my opinion, because he tries to see the good in everybody, as has been proven many times. So I feel like he'd be the most open to help her with her problems and like suggest something, like in good faith. I find that I would like that. I really like that. So Jamie and Alan so far are the two characters that I'm not really gonna have a problem with here. Because Jamie's character has been set up in previous episodes, specifically the coach, as kind of this character. That is fine. I don't have a problem with anything Jamie does technically because it makes sense within her character so far. Which is kind of crazy considering how much of a genuinely like evil person she acts throughout this episode. I would argue while she needs to be arrested or something. It's just like I feel like what she does doesn't piss me off because she's supposed to be the antagonist and supposed to be causing the conflict and it's supposed to be like this. And I understand that and I'm like, fine, fuck you, but I understand what we're doing here. Now this is when we get to the main issue that just pisses me the fuck off, honestly, is that Gumball and Darwin in this episode, I literally don't know what the fuck we're doing because Darwin is the poor soul that has to be next to Jamie as she makes her epiphany of, I need to have a boyfriend. The main conflict in this episode is that Jamie forces Darwin to be her boyfriend, but Darwin doesn't have the spine to tell her that he doesn't want to do this. Now, this is where I believe the character motivations get a bit murky. I'm gonna focus on Darwin right now, okay? Where it's like, yes, it is framed as Darwin is too afraid of Jamie to do anything about the situation because he doesn't want to get his ass beat. That is probably the most obvious thing that they're trying to convey. But I truly feel that Darwin himself doesn't have the correct emotional response to this based on the way they're trying to frame it. Because what confuses me, this literally confuses me because I'm like, is that Darwin is just so emotionless throughout this entire ordeal, okay? He sits there with like small pupils and a straight face just kind of sitting there. Yes, that can convey fear, but it's like he doesn't say anything. He dead ass just sits there. I even when he first tells Gumball the situation he involved himself with, Gumball's appropriately crashing out, saying like, "Dude, do you know what this means? Like, you're fucked, dude." And then Darwin's just like, "Well, I didn't want to run away. Like, I'll just ride it out." The way Darwin acts just doesn't make any goddamn sense. I could understand if he's too afraid to do anything about it, because that would make sense, as Darwin has been shown before to be a very passive character, specifically for like the words or the sidekick or something like that. I understand where this comes from. It's just the way they decide to write Darwin here. I just don't like it because it's like we don't really know what's going on in his head, okay? He's just sitting there not saying anything and he's like, and no matter how much Gumball tells him like please do something, he's like no, 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 no. It's not even like no, I can't. I'm too scared. It's more like no, I'm not doing it. It's like I feel like the tone in which he conveys a lot of things it just doesn't match the situation. It's not even like, oh, maybe this could be a more nuanced like interpretation of someone going through this type of situation, but I just feel like it's like what is he doing? Because I feel like Gumball's the only one acting normally, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. Because I feel like besides Darwin, Gumball is like I just don't understand what the fuck they were trying to go for when they were like writing him in this, because he kind of like jumps around because we're depending on how he feels about the situation. Because at first he's obviously concerned about him, like, acting normally, like, dude, you have to do something. Like, he's obviously freaking out for the right reasons. But then as this episode progresses, like, Gumball kind of, like, goes from being concerned about, like, Darwin's well being to just being pissed off at him that he's not doing anything about it. Which I would argue, this is what I would argue of why I think this just doesn't work. If we are led to assume that the reason why Darwin's not doing anything about this is because he's so scared that something bad is gonna happen to him, or that he's gonna get hurt, or that she's gonna beat him up, that it's like that's why he feels the way he does. And this is kind of the vibe I got from at least the way that Gumball was like talking to Darwin, specifically like with like lines like, how could you let that happen to your own father and say nothing? After she shoves a lacrosse stick down Richard's throat, and that's when Gumball says that line, and then Darwin just looks at the ground and doesn't say anything. It's kind of like blaming somebody for like staying in an abusive relationship, even though it's like it's more complicated than that. And it's like it's kind of like blaming the victim. It's blaming the victim, okay? That's what I got from like as Gumball is just keep blaming Darwin for like all this happening. But it's like he's just Darwin is purely the victim in this situation, okay? There's no doubt about that. So why is Gumball like berating him to like making him feel guilty about the things that she does when he has no control over the things that she does? Like what the fuck? Like I don't like that. So I feel like it's basically Gumball going from like he's trying to basically convince Darwin to stand up for himself against Jamie. Like please say something. Like like you can't let her do this to you. Like trying to like actually tell him some good advice. But then it like devolves into like being mean to him for the things that Jamie does when Darwin's not technically responsible for like her actions, cuz why would he? It's like, dude, like I'm thinking Gumball, if you're so concerned, go talk to her yourself. Why didn't Gumball do anything about it until he got involved in it personally? Because kind of like how this resolves itself, or at least the point that it gets to the point of no return where Gumball's like, well, this is now affecting me, so I have to do something about it, which I find to be a bit damning if I do say so myself, when Gumball doesn't actually do anything about the situation until he himself is directly involved and it's hurting him as well. But if it's just hurting Darwin, he can just plead with him all he wants about trying to stand up to her. But as soon as he gets involved, then he's like, actually, we might need to do something about that. It's like, you should have done something about that when your brother was being sexually harassed by this girl. Not when you also get roped into that. We're gonna get into the specifics of that scene later because, anyway, another thing that like Gumball says, and I'm like, are we being dead ass? Because the way I interpreted this, I'm like, oh my god. So when they are like under the lunch table, okay, this is like the scene where it's like, do you want to share Gumball's lunch with me, sweetheart? I thought that little bit was kind of funny. But when Gumball pulls Darwin under the lunch table and is basically like, you please have to tell her off, is what he's saying. And then Darwin's like, no, I can't do it. And then Gumball says, could you at least look less adorable? This is what I thought it meant, is that if you look less attractive, then you won't get sexually harassed. Because that's kind of, I think that's what he was kind of implying. It's like, if you looked uglier, then maybe she'll stop harassing you. And I'm like, are we being dead ass right now? Nobody is immune to being sexually harassed. So why are we pretending like if Darwin was less adorable, then Jamie would stop bothering him? It's like she don't care. She'd probably do it anyway. Probably my favorite scene, I will say. My favorite scene in this episode is when Jamie beats the piss out of Sarah, okay? Because as she's being like textbook definition toxic girlfriend, and when Sarah walks by and says hi to Gumball and Darwin, and then Jamie immediately thinks that Darwin is like dating Sarah or something, or like cheating on her with Sarah. And then Sarah's like, no, no, that's not what we're doing. And of course, Jamie does one ear out the other, so to get her revenge, she basically kills Sarah, for lack of a better term, because the way this is like framed is just horrific with when she comes back with her hands covered in Sarah's ice cream is just like them staring at Jamie licking Sarah's flesh off her hand and she doesn't say anything. It's just such a quiet thing. Whereas they're watching this happen and then she just comes back. And they're just so horrified that Gumball. Well, I wrote this down. Hold on. When Gumball says, "I'll just go scrape Sarah off that general area and take her to the infirmary." The way he says that, that's my favorite scene. It's just so messed up. It is so messed up. But for Jamie's character, I say, yeah, she'd probably kill somebody over nothing. But this is kind of when we get Gumball being kind of like unfair to Darwin given the situation when he says, "She's your girlfriend, do something." And she's like beating up Sarah. And I'm like, do you think that is Darwin's responsibility? She's your girlfriend, do something. No, she's not. He didn't. No, what the fuck are we doing? It's like, dude. But then, like, Richard shows up, and I'm like, what? Because Richard randomly shows up. I understand it is framed as, like, what are you doing here? To bring your get out of gym class equipment. It's like, even the way they explained it in the episode, I'm like, oh, this is so half-assed. It's like, what? Richard just shows up to make weird noises and then get the shit kicked out of him by Jamie with, like, the lacrosse stick. It's like he only arrives on the scene just to get beat up. Well, that paired with how could you let this happen to your own father and say nothing? It's like, Gumball, shut the fuck up. Halfway through this, and I'm already like mentally checked out because this is like not only just fuckery just to watch, but like the way it's written, I just is just baffling. But then we get to the third act, okay, when Jamie ropes Gumball into what I have called the nightmare threesome of Gumball, Darwin, and Jamie. This moment, I've watched this episode like enough times, but just revisiting this now is just like seeing it for the first time, and I'm like, this moment made me slam my computer shut and like walk away from it for like 5 minutes because I just could not deal with this anymore. This hasn't happened to me up until this point reviewing these episodes, so this says something. When Jamie is mad at Gumball because he's taken Darwin's time away from her or something, and she's like, "I'm sick of having to share my boyfriend with his other boyfriend." And then Gumball's like, wait, there's a big difference between a boyfriend and a friend who's a boy. Because obviously he doesn't want the incest allegations. But then Jamie's like, not to me. You're my boyfriend now. It's just when I just had to walk away. I just had to walk away. I don't like anything about that. I'm like, Jamie, Shirley, you know they're brothers. You know goddamn well they are brothers. But even after all of that, Darwin's still like, she has to figure it out for herself. And I'm like, motherfucker, what is the line for you? Genuinely. That's what Gumball is thinking at this point. What is your limit of what you will tolerate? Because if you are willing to tolerate a nightmare threesome with your brother and this crazy girl that's gonna beat your ass, what's the limit of what is acceptable to you? And this is when Gumball has his realization that
Alan, we are so fucked.
that he like tries to run away. This gave me flashbacks to the dress because it's the exact same thing, but I argue that this is just as bad as like a future prediction flash forward scene where Gumball is roped into a marriage he didn't agree with that involves his brother and having 50 million kids. This is the same shit. Anyway, this is what makes Gumball realize we gotta run. And I will say that, like, the scene where it's like Jamie is chasing Gumball through the school, I do really like that. I will say I do really like that. Because it has the appropriate vibe of what this shit is, which is just straight up horror. Everything about it, like the music, the colors, the camera work, all of it, I really like it. And I think it's appropriate for the tone that this shit should set. I feel like this type of energy should have been brought, like, more throughout the episode, but I do like it here. Because once Gumball realizes this is out of control, like, we gotta run. But you know what? I wish that they did. Because the whole time I'm thinking, specifically with, like, Gumball getting involved in this type of situation, is where's Penny in all this? I don't know if she even appears in this episode. Where the fuck is Penny? Because I will tell you this much, is that Penny could beat Jamie's ass. Penny could wipe the floors with Jamie because she's got crazy powers, and when she catches wind of, like, you're gonna take my man, I think the fuck not. She could probably, like, turn into a dragon and just turn Jamie into Char. It's like Penny, I feel like if they had, like, the plot twist of, like, Penny finds out and avenges for both Gumball and Darwin is, like, beat up Jamie. And then everyone realizes that Jamie's not as, she's all talk and not actions. And Penny's the one that, like, sets her straight. In my personal opinion, I feel like I think that would be cool. I'm biased because Penny's my favorite character, but I just feel like that would be cool. But you know what's not cool? Is the way they decide to end this is probably the worst fucking thing about all of this, I will say that. The ending is the worst thing about this. Because while I do enjoy the part where Gumball's like, what do you want from me? And it makes Jamie freeze up. Actually thinking about why she's doing this, and she's like, you know what, there is no reason for this. And so basically, she does indeed figure it out for herself after Gumball kind of leads on an epiphany, where she's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. That's not how you love people. If you abuse people, you don't love them, you know? I don't mind that. If that was just how it ended, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But the straight bullshit that they decided to pull was for it finally Darwin confronts her and echoes the words that she just said to Gumball. He finally gets the courage to talk to her. And then Jamie's like, fuck you, think I'm stupid? And of course, he finally gets the beating. And then Gumball's like, you shouldn't have done that. You should just kept your mouth shut. Fuck that. Absolutely not. You cannot backpedal like that. That's disgusting. In the context we find ourselves in, what this episode is so deep into, like, abusive romantic relationships, all of that, why the fuck would you end it off on that note? So I say fuck that, and that's not an unpopular opinion. That's really not. I don't know anyone that, like, likes this to any degree other than lukewarm, so it's like, no. I know I got kind of heated with that, but, oh, it's not that serious. I'm aware of that. I just have big feelings. But I don't hate every single thing about this. There's parts of it I really like. Or that I think are kind of cool. But I can't go out of an episode hating every single character and thinking that's any good.
F you, f you, f you. You're cool. F you. I'm out.
It's just I don't know what the fuck is going on with this. So, hell, obviously. I mean, there's episodes I don't like more than this. Because I feel like this isn't the worst thing there is to offer, but I don't fuck with it anyway. But all that being said, next we have the advice. Which I like better than this. This episode specifically just reminds me of when I was in high school, and during summer training for, like, cross country, I would, like, run on the treadmill in our basement while watching Gumball. And this is just, like, that to me. This is just what it reminds me of. There are so many episodes I've watched during that period of time in my life, but this one, for some reason, just, like, maybe it was on reruns more often or something, but it is so steeped in, like, me running cross country in high school, and I'm like, I'd rather not think about that. But despite that, I think this is a good episode. It's not gonna be ranked as highly as like a lot of other stuff to come, because I must say, this batch right here, we got some good shit. So the competition is kind of tough. But I do like this enough, but it's not like my favorite. Because I have it in good. The way I have it is I have it under the romantic, because I like it enough. It's just not. I'll tell you why. I like that this is a Mr. Small episode, okay? I very much like Mr. Small episodes. In this specific situation where Mr. Small gets depressed because he feels like he's not fulfilling his life's purpose, because he wants to be the greatest teacher that ever lived and wants to inspire all of the students in a profound way. So, of course, Gumball and Darwin feel bad about this, so they decide to follow his advice to make him feel better about himself. Which I would say, I like those character motivations. Because it has been proven before that Gumball and Darwin will be doing some crazy shit just to make someone feel a bit better about themselves. So, I actually like that. But what I don't so much, I don't know if it's because I don't even know if I'd say I don't enjoy it, but maybe what I feel kind of lukewarm about is how the rest of this episode is just Darwin being stupid. For lack of a more elegant term. Is Darwin is stupid taking Mr. Small's advice too literally, while Gumball's just standing there like rolling his eyes at him. Like, are you sure this is gonna work? Oh, there's no way this is gonna work. What are you doing? It's like, because obviously everything that Mr. Small suggests, when they try to apply it, it doesn't go well, making them believe that Mr. Small gives bad advice. Because it hurts people, specifically. But it's technically only Darwin that's doing, like, all the damage, because Gumball is just sitting there like, bruh, are you sure about that? So I found that interesting, that it's like one of those situations where it's like Darwin's doing some shit that Gumball doesn't approve of. Yeah, I do like that. But probably my favorite part of the whole thing, it's a very, like, a quiet scene, honestly, is when Gumball finally admits to Mr. Small that his advice is bad. And Mr. Small feels very terrible about himself, and he's like, well, I guess I'll go back to what I usually do. You know, he's obviously heartbroken by this. And then Darwin's quick to say, like, no, he didn't mean it like that. He meant it as good. Like, your advice is good. Like, Darwin is gonna do anything to, like, save Mr. Small's feelings. And then Mr. Small's like, oh, is that really true? Do you really think that my advice is good? And the whole few seconds of the silent back and forth between Gumball and Darwin looking at each other, to Mr. Small about to burst into tears, as Gumball contemplates what he should say to Mr. Small. Basically, be honest with him and end all this suffering, or continue to spare his feelings no matter the cost. And Gumball's like, fine. So up until the very end, they will do anything in their power to spare Mr. Small's feelings, including covering up all the damage they've done and all the people that were injured. So, Mr. Small never figures it out. And I just think that's kind of interesting, but I feel like what is, like, probably the biggest downside is just, like, so much emphasis on Darwin being stupid. It's like, you kind of get it after the first time when he tries to recreate his dream, but, you know, I still like it because it's like kind of a different dynamic. It's like they're like the motivations aren't really selfish or like misplaced intentions or whatever. It's just kind of like it's basically they don't want to hurt his feelings no matter the cost. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of interesting. Okay, next we have the signal. I love this. Because I feel like this is one of the groundwork to the lore of this world being just broken wide open in a later entry. But I like it for that, where this is the episode where Gumball and Darwin learn that they live in a TV set. I don't know if they fully understand it, but they begin to question their world in a way they only did a little bit before. I'm thinking about the kids when they realize that they are the 1% of people that don't age, including people on TV. So maybe they knew a little bit then, but this is the episode where it's fully realized, at least to a degree where the audience as well can understand that. Because the glitch, the signal glitch, that's messing up their lives in every type of way. And you know what? I'm just gonna say right here, we got to talk about this a lot later. But I think the parallels between the signal and the disaster, I think they're present. Specifically in like how an uncontrollable force is causing Darwin to get mad at Gumball for reasons that are not Gumball's fault. And that involves him like chasing after him, begging for his forgiveness. But it seems like nothing he can do to make him like forgive him because the world just keeps fucking with him. I'm thinking about when in the disaster when Rob had the remote and he was making the captions, trying to make it look like Gumball saying offensive things to Darwin. And even though he begs him to like no, I wouldn't say that, all that. But no matter what he does, like an external force keeps messing with his words. So his words specifically keeps messing with his words and makes him like damage his relationship with Darwin. I don't know if that was meant to be a parallel to the future or like foreshadowing, but I fuck with it so heavy it made me geek out a bit. But in this case, it's like the signal glitch like messing with how we can talk and move and all of that. Because the whole thing is like when Darwin's trying on hats and then he wants Gumball's opinion on how his hats look, but it ends up with the glitch causing Gumball to make Darwin think, he doesn't say it, this is just what Darwin thinks, is that Gumball thinks he's like fat and ugly. And he like gets super offended by that. And then Gumball's like begging with him, like, dude, wait, why are you mad at me? I would say specifically the voice acting for Gumball in this episode is I love when he says like, wait, why are you mad at me? Like in that like innocent, scared, like cracked voice type of way. That makes me maternal towards him. It's just like, oh no. It's the sincerity in which Gumball says, dude, you don't have to do this, you're not fat at all. It's not in what he says. It's how he says it. The world is beating him while he's already down. Specifically, the probably like the kill shot to all of this is when Gumball's like trying to like write Darwin like an apology letter, which I love that whole sequence. Okay, I think it's beautiful. When Gumball is writing an apology letter to Darwin, and then when Darwin's like, "Oh, what are you doing there?" and then Gumball's like, "I'll read you this letter that I wrote." And us, the audience, know it's a very like heartfelt letter. But then just cut it to the signal completely butchering his words. And then Darwin's like, I think I've done enough storming out for today. I think you should leave. It's just brutal, honestly. It's just like, I love it. I love like the angst factor of it. It's just kind of like, ugh. Because Gumball's just like so desperate to do anything to make it right, but nothing he can do can because it's out of his control. But Darwin can't realize that until maybe it's too late, because Darwin only realizes that they're in the signal glitch is when the world glitches Richard out of the car as they're driving to get ice cream. And they are abandoned in the car. And then Gumball's like, now do you see what I mean? And then Darwin's like, oh my god, I guess you're right. I thought that was interesting. It's like the peak climax is like they forgive each other, but it's not all well and good because they're like free falling down the highway. I just thought that was the whole, of course, the whole sequence of like the car. Is it even a car chasing if the car is just free flying? But the whole car scene as like this and how the signal affects everything. It's so cool. It is so cool. But I do wonder like how some people can't see the glitches or like understand what's happening. Like I don't like Darwin, didn't you see that something was going on there? But But in my notes I said this is the episode where they gain consciousness, and I think that is actually true because after this, especially knowing that the disaster's gonna come later, I feel like this sets the tone properly of in the spirit of the grand lore, the specific like life as a simulation slash in a TV type of thing. Yeah, I think this is like the hard launch of that idea. I'd say the kids was the soft launch of the TV theory. This is the hard launch of the TV theory, and then the disaster is gonna be the confirmation that this is in fact all connected. So incredible. So I love this very much. So I think it's great. Okay, next we have the Parasite, which I do like. I do enjoy this, even though this episode also kind of reminds me of high school cross country training, which I don't want to think about. But despite that, this is a good episode because Anais is the focus with her new friend Jody, who Gumball wants to kill, apparently. So, what I like about this episode is the sibling love aspect of Gumball and Darwin want to protect Anais from this person that they believe is hurting her. Even though Anais is like, no, she's great, she's my best friend. I love her so much. And Gumball and Darwin are mistakenly assume that Jody is actually a leech because they misinterpret the situations in which Anais is basically being a doormat to her. So everything is done in good faith because Gumball and Darwin want to do everything to protect Anais from leeches or parasites, more like, where they would do anything for their little sister, which is adorable, and I always love when that happens. But how we got here, with them reading her diary, is kind of crazy, but I guess that's normal brother stuff, right? And the whole like kind of thing that I thought was kind of funny was like how Gumball being able to do perfect impressions of people actually became like useful to the plot like later on. Specifically when he fakes Anais's voice on the phone to like have a friend break up with Jody because he can read her diary in her voice. It's like I don't think this is ever brought up again, but I just think that's funny. But also, what I found interesting about the whole thing with them reading her diary and having an epiphany, like, oh, I think this friend's taking advantage of Anais. And then when Gumball describes the type of person he thinks the friend is, like, oh, she's selfish and leechy and horrible and all of that, she needs to be put in her place. And then Gumball's like, well, who does that sound like to you? And then Darwin says, it sounds like you, bro. And then Gumball's like, anyway, because at first he don't want to admit it. But then when Darwin goes in for the shot the second time, he's that sounds like a Gumball. What are you talking about? And then Gumball says, quote, I should be the only one that's allowed to do that. And I'm thinking, as someone who kind of specializes in Gumball Watterson character studies, considering I have 4 separate fan fiction stories about this, but I think that's interesting, where Gumball denounces his own behavior when it's exhibited in other people, but he excuses it for himself. Because I am not kidding, because he literally tries to poison this girl. Is that he wants her dead. He is so against Jody that he just about do anything to take her down. Because he finds her traits so deplorable that she simply must be vanquished. But Gumball can do the same things that she does. And he won't question it. More like he don't want to, in this case, as we know by this point, he don't want to accept that part of himself. So he'll excuse it if he's the one doing it. But if it's anybody else, he beat them up. So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, but that is the kind of body horror aspect of this comes into play is when the social parasite is real and you become fused into this monstrosity and it's gross and everything. So I thought that like the culmination of all this being like body horror is fun. I like that. And how the only way for them to defeat this, for lack of a better term, is if Anais is the one to emotionally let go of her. Because up to this point, everyone's fully convinced that it's Jody that's the problem. And Anais is actually the one that's being too aggressive towards her. Basically forcing herself into her life as her friend. I like how that twists. And Anais is so socially awkward and anxious that she just doesn't know how to be normal with people. I kind of like that. So it's great. With that being said, I think this is great. Yeah. Okay, next we have the love. I will say this, just to get out of the way, because this is the first entry in this bunch that this relates to. Why is there 4 different clip show style episodes this season? We have this one. From our last round, we have the uploads. And later in this list, we have the night, and the compilation. Why is there 4 of them? I didn't realize this until I was watching this batch. But that's a lot of fucking clip show episodes for one season, considering I don't think there's many. There was only a couple in all the other seasons so far. Like maybe like one per season or something. Why is there so many here? Genuine question, because I noticed it as a pattern. But in regard to, I guess, all the clip show type of episodes in this batch, they're good. I just don't prefer them over a linear story. I feel like the uploads is the only one that I'm like, this is like the reason why I love that is because it's both kind of a clip show episode, but also it ties very strongly into a linear story. This, not so much. Yes, we have the story of like Bobbert wants to understand what love is, and everyone explains it to him. But I don't feel like it's as strong of a story. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. And I do think this is cute. Like, I do like the bits in it. I do like the vibe of it. I think there's some funny bits. There's some parts that I think are very sweet. It's just I feel like there's not a lot for me to grab onto here. Besides what in the song in the beginning, you know? And then Gumball and Penny are like, do we love each other? I guess we sorta do. It's like, sort of. You sort of do. Are you fucking sure about that? That is such a nitpick, but I'm like, come on. Sort of do? Shut up. Anyway, I do think this is sweet. Like, I like the Robinsons section. I like Sussy's parents. And I like the internet coming back to be someone's fuck-ass hinge boyfriend or whatever. I do like the clips. I just feel like it's not as interesting as a lot of other things in this season. Or even in other clip show episodes, I would say. So, I do think it's good. Anyway, next. Oh my god. We have the awkwardness. I find it interesting that the hug and the awkwardness are in the same season. Maybe I'm thinking the cringe is in a different season from all this, but I think it's interesting how close together they did this. But I don't mind that. But I will tell you this much. I'm like 95% sure that this was the first Gumball episode I ever watched, like, the live premiere of. Because I have this very specific memory of, I think I was in high school and I like got home from school and I watched this as like the first time I like watched a new Gumball episode, you know what I mean? I just remember this was the first this was my first episode technically that I saw live. With that being said, I think that's the only strong attachment I have to this because I feel like I don't like this as much as the hug, but I do like this. I just feel like compared to what has been done previously, this doesn't really have like the zest, if you will, that the hug does. Cuz I feel like the hug is purposefully written to be more like objectively shocking and like a more intense feeling as this being like the first time this happens. In the awkwardness, now they're like used to each other. Hot Dog Guy still doesn't know Gumball's name. I still think that's funny. But it's like, oh, not him again. I'm gonna try to avoid you, but I can't because obviously we are like divinely intertwined or some shit because I don't know. But despite me not liking their dynamic in this episode as much as the hug, I can't say less or more than the cringe because I need to revisit that when I get to it in my go through of the show. So I don't know. But I have a feeling that the hug might be my favorite Hot Dog Guy and Gumball dynamic. The concept of this is also fucked, but I think it has to be to compete with the hug of Gumball is on a quest to buy ketchup for his hot dog. But he runs into Hot Dog Guy, and how are you supposed to tell? Like, oh, what are you gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna go buy some ketchup for my hot dog. And he's like, bruh. But this just continues to make me wonder what's the line between sentient person and a edible food item? And they're technically both, so if you eat that, is that cannibalism? I don't know. The relationship between, like, food people and food in the show is something I don't want to know too much more about, but you know. But I do like kind of like the different type of awkwardness they like write them in, as in more like normal awkwardness. Because the hug is like supernatural awkwardness. Like, how can anyone do this type of stuff? Or like, who ends up in these situations? But this is more like ordinary awkwardness, kind of like standing too close to someone in the public bus, or having to share an elevator with someone, or happen to walk in the same direction as someone else. This is why it's called the awkwardness, obviously, because it's just like normal awkward things that happen. But considering the relationship between Gumball and Hot Dog Guy, it just makes it 10 times worse. Which makes me think if this is supposed to mean like not only like ordinary awkwardness, it's just like awkwardness around someone you really don't want to talk to. Like someone you know that you're like trying to purposely avoid because you really don't want to talk to them. But if you were to talk to them, you'd feel obligated to talk to them. It's kind of like the energy of like seeing someone you knew from like if you're like if you're like middle school or high school age, just like that, and you like see like your teacher or like this classmate you don't really know in like the grocery store, and you don't know if you should like say something or like look away or just like run in the opposite direction. It's like it kind of makes me think about that. So it does serve its place in the saga, the trilogy, the Dog trilogy. I don't ship them. But I do like the aspect of them kind of near the end of the episode where they basically work together to escape. As in, they're literally handcuffed together so they can't get away from each other. So they are forced to work together to get to the common goal of just evacuate the situation. Because before it was like they're working against each other, but now they are forced to work together for a common goal. And I like that. Like when they're trying to outrun the mall cop. I like that. So in that aspect, I think it's kind of cute to see them get along. I do think it's good. They're gonna share the tier, but the hug is just more interesting. Like, this is so weird, I can't look away. This is good in, like, a normal way that's kind of deranged, because is anything normal between those two? Never. So, yeah, I do really like this. Okay, next we have the nest. Out of the two, the puppy and the nest is my preferred option because I think this is great. Honestly, just based off of straight vibes. I'm not gonna lie. Because as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate, like, the finer details of cartoons, I suppose, or whatever. Like, oh, if the animation looks really nice, or like, oh, I like the light and I like the colors grading on it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. And it gets up like 20 points in my book, and I'm like, yeah, because the mood that this sets with, like, it being like a rainstorm and everything's kind of like gray washed. I love how this looks so much. It reminds me of the routine, which I also really like, but the vibes of this, immaculate. Because it's very much like played straight as like this is kind of horror. Cause our evil dinosaur turtle laid a bunch of eggs and is wreaking havoc on the town. And we're the only ones that can do something about it. So we have to save everyone from being eaten alive by these tiny turtles. It's like we have a real threat because again, evil turtle has a lot of lore built up to this point. And yeah, I just like that a lot. Yeah, but I also like kind of like apocalypse. I don't know, apocalypse type episodes, is that the right word? Because something like the pizza is what this kind of reminds me of, is like that kind of just grittier type of vibe where it's like I wouldn't say a serious story, but just a more grounded story played very straight. I'm thinking like this, the pizza, the treasure, the helmet, stuff like that. That's just a bit that's just a bit different. It takes itself a little bit more seriously without going like, I don't know, full meta earth-shattering shit on it. But I like the vibe of this. Now, and this was also the episode where Gumball's like, "Oh, that's why I'm not a cat person." And then Darwin's looking at him like, bruh. But but also like it's very much a whole family affair here because Anais is the one that like wants to research like, oh, we have to research what kind of turtle she is, and she gets all geeked out about like the different scientific terms, and she's like doing her studies on the egg and all that, and I like more Anais character development and how this is like this reminds me of the treasure and how it's like Anais solving a mystery in the rain. I don't know. It's similar. But yeah. And the final closing of the evil turtle arc is that she gets to be free and feral in the water. So that's good. But yeah, I really like this. I like this a lot. Wait. I like this a lot. Okay, next we have the points. I think this is an example of one that maybe I've fallen out of favor with. Well, I think when I was younger, I think I may have liked it a bit more than I do now. I mean, it was never like one of my favorite ones, but it's just because Tobias was there and I usually enjoy Tobias episodes, but in this case, I realize I just don't really. I don't know what we're doing here because the specific concept of Gumball and Darwin earning the good points for doing shit for Tobias and end up ruining everything. Why is the climax of this, like the sudden realization that Tobias has been swindling them this entire time? Why was it that, oh, the money wasn't real after all? When there was an entire segment in the first act that was them with their invisible shit. You knew it wasn't real to begin with. Why is this the climax realization that makes you have an invisible space battle? It's like, dude, I didn't even know, like, what. Like, oh, you never gave us anything at all. Like, no shit, he never gave you anything to begin with, dude. I just think that's incredibly stupid, even by like cartoon standards. It's like that's just stupid. Like it doesn't make any sense. What are we doing? Genuinely. But I will say I don't like hate this because I will say the fight scene like with their invisible space guns and shit, I do like that. And how it turns out that they're just hallucinating this whole thing. Because Anais is like, "What are you doing?" So we're having a space battle, can't you see? She's like, "Okay." I do like that. And like how like the video game theme is brought there as well. And I also do like Mr. Wilson crashing out on them for Tobias spending $15,000 on video game add-ons, and I'm like, don't give a 12-year-old your credit card number. But and then Gumball making up the fake currency, like 5 Waterson dollars. It's like, dude, okay. I like this kind of, but I feel like the plot itself is just nothing. It's like, where's the tension? Where's the stakes? Where's the anything? Besides, Tobias messes with them to do his chores, and they don't even really get mad about that. They just get mad that they didn't get paid. And I'm like, okay, you were just using us for chores. I thought you knew that going into it. But anyway, despite all the things that are in meh, this one's the finest. Next, we have the bus. Which I will fully admit, I am brave enough to admit that I did not understand this the first couple of times I watched it. I don't know why. Because I knew this was like an important episode and like the lore and it's like well regarded. But it took me a minute to like fully connect the pieces of like why this episode is so great. Because at first I thought, I was like, oh, that's good, you know. The first time I revisited it. Then I'm like, I'm not too sure how I feel about that, so I'm gonna do it a second time. And once I thought about it more, and rewatched it a second time, I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah. This gets a hell yeah for me. So much so that I think it's peak. It went from I don't know how to feel about this to peak very quickly, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because this is truly great. Like the entire setup of it. Like I think it's very well written in like the story aspect of it. Cause the whole thing of the adults pretend to have a police heist chase scene to prove to the kids that skipping school isn't cool. And although they think this is a joke, turns out the cops think this is real, and they really blew $2 million on this shit. But once the adults realize there's something wrong with that, because that's not what we asked for, and it turns out that Rob was the one that planted the seeds of this idea for the sole purpose of blowing up everybody. Because he wants to do a villainous type of thing. I love that. I love that so much because you know why? This is the first solid piece of evidence of Rob being a genuine threat to Gumball. Because yes, there's been other episodes like the Nemesis and the Nobody where it's like, you know, getting into his villain arc. But he's always seen as like someone who plays dress up as a villain. All talk, no walk. We know how it is. Even to the point where Gumball thinks that that's the case. But this is the first episode where he's like, fuck it. I'm killing everybody. Because it's kind of the severity of what we got going on here. I think it's kind of... It's funny how they can't, for some whatever reason, say the word bomb. Even though that's what it is. I always think, like, they can say assassinate all they want, but they can't even say bomb. But this is the first time that Rob, like, makes a coherent plan of destruction, and it's... He wants to straight up kill everybody. And then Gumball's like, what? What I found saved this, honestly. This low-key saved this aspect of the plot for me, is when Gumball was completely convinced right off the bat that these weren't real criminals, these were their parents and Principal Brown. And he keeps telling everybody, that's just our parents. Why are you so afraid of them? There's nothing to be worried about here. They're just being stupid. But everyone else is completely convinced that these are actual criminals. So I do feel like Gumball being like, I'd say like, oh, that doesn't make sense why they all think that way, because why would Alan think that way? He's got to be at least more intelligent than most of them. And why doesn't Darwin understand that? It's like, but I feel like what saves me from going down that path is at least somebody is unconvinced. And that person is Gumball, because he can smell the bullshit. In this case, it's very thinly veiled bullshit, but it is something that he's more annoyed at the fact that one, his classmates aren't gonna let up the illusion of, oh my god, these are real criminals and we're totally held under hostage, to the adults doing everything in their power to make this as convincing as possible, but we know damn well they're not convincing anybody. Because probably my favorite exchange in this entire episode is when Gumball goes up to Richard and is like, I know what you did. Give it up. I know this isn't real. And then when Richard has this convoluted story about how if you skip math class, you're gonna live a life of crime. And then after he describes all the things he did, Gumball's like, that makes you 89, that doesn't add up. It's just the line delivery, the specific voice acting for Gumball, and how completely mentally checked out he sounds while he says those lines. Specifically, I didn't ask, because that now lives in my head rent-free as, like, I'm sure you want to know how I got into the life of crime. and you may ask, what led you to this life of crime? And then Gumball's like, I didn't ask. And then Gumball's like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. It's like, Gumball conveys everything you need to know in, like, a few words. Like, I don't even know, like, how many, he says it in a couple sentences of just that. And, like, the fuck-ass look on his face where he's just like, bruh. And I'm like, it's the little things like that. The actual fight of Gumball and Rob on the plane. Even while he has a fight with Rob on the wing of an airplane in the middle of the runway, after he's been taken out of the bus, he still has the audacity to say, wow, this is a lot more cool than going to school. And then Rob's like, this isn't supposed to be fun. We still have that shred, okay? The shred of Gumball's innocence to the depths of the situation is he still has the audacity to say, wow, having a fight with your arch nemesis is so much more fun than going to school. He ain't gonna be saying that in a few episodes, but, I just think that was interesting. And then when Rob keeps trying to tell him, this isn't supposed to be fun. I need to do something actually evil to prove that I'm a villain, not just monologuing evilly to myself. Because, of course, one of them has the bomb. One of them has the $1 million. Who's it gonna be? Of course, Rob gets the short end of the stick and apparently now has a criminal record. So for all of that being said, yes, this is peak. Okay, next we have The Night, which is one of our other clip show episodes of this batch. But I will say that I do like this a little bit more than... I like this more than The Love. But I think it's fine. I like it enough. It's more interesting than the other one. It's still not as interesting as, like, a linear story. But even in the Sphere of Dreams, you know, like, there's so much you can do with that. I'm thinking the episode of SpongeBob where they did SpongeBob going through people's dreams. You can do something like that and have it be interesting, but I just feel like the way they did it here wasn't super interesting, because, like, there are some dreams, okay? There are a few characters' dreams that genuinely give us, like, further insight into their characters, okay? Like Hector's dream to be normal size so he can exist, like, normally. The Daisy dream about her abusing Anais as a toy, like Anais does to her. And Juke's dream where he can talk like how everyone else does. But everyone begins to talk like him, so he still can't understand them. I thought this was interesting, bringing this lore back from the boombox from season 2. That's cool. The seeds of this being planted in this episode's kind of crazy. Kind of like the soft launch of Alan's evil thoughts. Because his dreams of burning in decay, I would argue, is like foreshadowing. I would argue that it's foreshadowing to the vision, and I like that. But besides that, it's like, I like it. Just not as much. So I'm gonna put where are you? I'm gonna put spoiler alert, I'm gonna put most of the ones like this are like around this area. But I do like this one more than that one, so yeah. Next. This surprised me so much. Because I remember I did not like this as a kid. I did not like the misunderstandings as a kid because it stressed me out. It stressed me out, and I didn't really like it because it stressed me out. But now, I like it because it stresses me out. Because now that I appreciate it more as, like, the story it's actually telling, like, this is the emotion they want to convey, and if I feel that what they're trying to convey in my soul, then it's like, yes, this is what it's doing what it's meant to do. Because this is supposed to make you feel anxious and, like, uncomfortable specifically. Because Gumball can't catch a fucking break. He feels like he's the only normal person in this universe. Because no matter what he does, no matter what he tries to say, no matter how clearly he tries to communicate anything, someone's gonna misunderstand him and it's gonna be used against him. Because all he wants to do is go on his date with Penny, but it seems like every other thing in the world's gonna prevent him from going on a date with Penny. And then she's just kind of sad and pissed off as she's sitting alone. And I'm like, I feel so bad for Gumball in this episode. I feel so bad for him. In like an empathetic way type of thing. In the trenches. He is in the trenches. Because besides like the whole setup of like Gumball misunderstands Penny in like the time they're gonna have their date. And I also thought it was funny, like, I'll be there in 10. And she's like, okay, good. When the rest of the episode is probably around 10 minutes long. I particularly enjoy that kind of meta reference. It's kind of like when Squidward says, like, I bet I'll give him 11 minutes from Nature Pants. That's what it reminds me of, and I quite enjoy that. But despite this stressing me out appropriately, because I'm supposed to feel what Gumball feels here, the other people being stupid is too entertaining for me to get properly mad at, because Banana Joe being dumb as fuck, it checks out. Oh, is he being too dumb for his character? It's like, nah, he'd probably do that anyway. And Darwin trying to do some dumb shit when it's like, you don't have ears. It's like, well, it's like every situation they force Gumball in is just kind of funny, because the whole thing of Banana Joe messing with him and, like, the homeless person, like, can't you tell I'm being sarcastic? And then Gumball just having a breakdown, like, I can't understand what you're trying to say. It's like, that is so fucking real sometimes. Can I tell if you're joking? I have no idea, and now I'm scared. There's a lot of uncomfortable implications in the type of shit Gumball gets. I'm gonna do a bit of a deeper read on this right now, if you don't mind. There's a lot of weird implications to the things that Gumball finds himself in, but I think that was intentional for the emotion that this episode is trying to create. Because the whole thing about... Well, first we'll go with the homeless person, who is... Gumball can't for his life understand if he's trying to be sarcastic or not. And it's like, oh, you don't like me enough to take me out to lunch? Like, wow. I'm not important to you? Like, wow, why would you do that? And Gumball just doesn't know what's going on, because, like, I don't know you, I don't know what you're trying to get at. Gumball gets coerced into having a dinner date with this random homeless man that is kind of framed as romantic by the way the homeless man talks about it, when this is a grown man and a 12-year-old. Have we considered that? Because I have considered that. I'm like, is this meant to feel gross? I think it is, by the way that Gumball reacts to it. He like, doesn't want to get involved in this. Like, dude, leave me alone. But this guy just won't let up at all. And, like, he follows him to the mall, because everyone ends up following him to the mall. And I'm like, okay, I feel like the uncomfortable tension that we're supposed to feel, yeah, that'll do it. That'll definitely do it. And you know what'll also definitely do it is the depiction of being sexually harassed by a group of grown men. The scene with the construction workers and the deliberate way the construction workers are acting, I know in my soul it's meant to be a deliberate thing of like men catcalling women and stuff like that. In this case, them just having no idea how to communicate with people, I suppose. Because this is so creepy, but I love that it is so creepy because this is exactly what they wanted to convey. Were the image of three grown men catcalling a 12-year-old, and then Gumball is just like trying his so hard to get out of this like politely or whatever. And this specific that went from uncomfortable to unacceptable. Yeah, obviously, because it's just so nasty. Like, it's honestly nasty, but it's supposed to be gross. So I'm like, hell yeah. Does that make any sense? I say that's an accurate depiction of what that fucking feels like. So, and the whole thing with them, they then come back. Like, oh, you said we should meet more people at the mall, so we're at the mall now. And then Gumball's like, you know what, fuck this. Banana Joe, go hang out with them. And then they start, like, catcalling Banana Joe in a weird that's probably just a little bit weirder than before. So good. I love how they decided to do that. Those are probably like the two most interesting like diversions, if we will. The homeless man and the construction workers. I do also like Banana Joe and like the shape people. Richard showing up, I guess that is fine. He'd be stupid anyway. That doesn't bother me. He was trying to go to the mall anyway. But also like sure, why not? Is the whole thing of him winning the auction, and then the guy's like, "Well, you have won a kiss." And then almost like, you know what, fuck it, fine. And he just, no hesitation, mouth kisses this random dude. And then the corn guy's obviously traumatized. He's like, "No, that's not what I meant." And Penny's just standing there laughing at him. I thought that was kind of funny. But honestly, Penny can't be that mad at this. She's in the crosshairs of all of this, and she's just waiting for him to show up. But she never truly gets mad at him besides, like, when he fails to realize that she is choking and then she has to have the waitress, like, pet her back. She only gives him, like, a glare. She never, like, truly crashes out on him for all this shit. That's a show to her tolerance, I suppose. But when they finally meet up, like, 3/4 of the way, and then Gumball's like, "I'm sorry I'm late. Everyone is being completely useless today," and I'm like, yeah, it fucking feels like that half the time. This is funny in a way I just didn't expect from what I remembered it. Cause I thought like, oh, it's so stressful and it kind of makes me irritated. But it's like, no, this is fun in a weird way. Cause I just think it's pretty well written. Like I feel what this is trying to do. I feel Gumball's pain. So on that merit, I think this is great. Okay, next we have The Roots. Which, this being in the same season as The Origins is kinda crazy, but we get technically 3 different Darwin lore episodes. But I will say, I wish I liked this more. Cause the idea, alright? I like the idea of them assuming that Darwin wants to be in his natural habitat, for lack of a better term, or back in the wild or something, where they think that he misses his life from before because he looks at the fish tank at the store. And they'll try to do everything they can to make him feel like he's connected with his culture in their home, but everything they do just annoys him. Like, that's interesting. It's just, this is pretty much a whole episode of the entire family being extremely stupid towards Darwin, and then Darwin just gets pissed off. It's like, okay. If anything, I find it may be similar to, like, The Advice. Where it's like, characters being stupid, and another character is just very like, what are you doing? But I feel like this episode maybe could have done a bit more for me As if maybe they were serious about it for just a little bit longer. I feel like there's too many dumb gags of them trying to do fishy things than like genuine, like emotional character building type of thing. Cause what I love is like the scene when they're at the computer. Okay, the iconic part where it's like they destroy their devices because Nicole figured out how to look up the browser history. My favorite part of the entire episode is when Nicole kicks the computer, screaming, "Nobody's gonna take my baby. I will destroy anyone who tries to take away my baby." As she's rage kicking the computer to smithereens because the thought of losing her child is too much for her. Fucking love it. It's so cute. It's so cute. She will die for her kids. I'm so it's so cute. She would do that though. She will destroy anyone who tries to hurt Darwin. That's the thing. We know she said that with her full chest. So I feel like if we focused on moments like that, and also the moment when they're about to release Darwin into the wild, because that's what they think he wants all along, even though bro can't survive in the wild, but when they give him a hug before they leave, and Anais says, "You were always my favorite." And then Gumball's like, "What?" And then Anais is like, "Just kidding." But she nods to Darwin. So the last things that she tells him is that you were my favorite sibling, I suppose. That is fucked up, but also very sweet. And like something new for Anais's like character that she does in fact favor Darwin over Gumball, like officially. Damn, I wish we had more of that. And even the bit when they're like driving back home crying. I do love the whole scene of like Darwin like rage chasing the car because it's like, why did you abandon me and go get ice cream? It's just like covered in seaweed. I love that part of it. The way they decided to end it. I do love the ending. Where Darwin was just trying to guilt trip them into buying him the big fish tank. And then Nicole's like, how could you? But I guess that really does make you one of us. And then, of course, Darwin had to throw in the kill shots, and he's like, well, I guess I never really knew my biological parents or, like, where I came from, you know? I do wonder what that's like, dude, bruh. And Nicole's like, well, but we cared for you all this time. Oh, so selfishly, we gave you a place to live, you know, classic mom shit. And then Darwin's like, okay. I do like that. I just wished we got more of like those genuine moments than just them being stupid. Cause I feel like there could have been more of a balance of that instead of them just pissing off Darwin for half the time. But you know, I still do like this. I do think it's good. Okay, next we have the blame, which I feel like I like it. I obviously do like it. I think it's great actually. I do think this is a great episode. I feel like I like it a little bit less now than I did before, which is kind of sad, but that doesn't mean I still don't like it. I just think that's interesting. Because the thing I like the most about this is like the overall like theme, like the vibe of it. The video games versus books debate, where basically this all ensues because Billy gets a mental breakdown over seeing a computer for the first time. Because Felicity being like the overprotective, like anti-vax parent, like checks out honestly. Because deadass, like the scene with Billy in the internet is like if you gave a hot Cheeto to a Victorian child. It's that metaphor or that comparison that is literally what is happening right now. And it's like he didn't even get past the loading screen. It's like, but I like how this kind of revolves around like senseless complaints from parents about things they don't fully understand and like blaming other things when it's not the problem and like avoiding the real problem and having a scapegoat for something just to prove their point. You know how it is. I think that this is like the theme of this episode I really quite enjoy. Especially like video games made my child look like this. It's like that's your genetics, buddy. I don't know what you're talking about. But Gumball tries so hard to like convince Felicity that's like, listen, video games aren't like that bad. Like, but Felicity don't care. She will twist anything in any way she wants. It even got to the point where Gumball had to defend Tina for this, which I found was interesting. Because as Gumball's like, you see, girls also play video games, and then when Felicity's like dogging on Tina's appearance, like Gumball tries to like come like like he's trying to defend her. Like, don't look at that, don't look at that. I thought that was interesting too. It's like he wouldn't usually do that. But it's like no matter what Gumball tries to prove, it doesn't work. Even though the scene of them playing Wii tennis is a canon life event. But, you know, I thought the way that was set up of like, oh, he has 3 lives and 3 shots to prove to Felicity or else he'll lose the battle. But, of course, once they realize the faults in their overall argument that video games are bad and books are good, it's like, well, we'll show you that books are kind of fucked up too. And they, of course, they performed the whole number of them on the stage, reenacting all the different books. This is the one thing that I'm like hung up about, is the song itself, okay? It's not so much that there is a song or that this was conveyed through a song, but for some reason, and this is such a nitpick, the beat of whatever of the song, like the instrumental, and like the pace of it, I just don't like. It's like a weird kind of pace. It's just weird, and I don't know why. It just doesn't work harmoniously in my brain. Case in point, I don't like the actual beat of the song, but I like the contents of the song. I like what they're trying to say. But they do technically get their point across. After Felicity caves, and it's like, well, I guess you are right. Books can be just as bad as video games. And just when you think they're gonna have a happy moment of understanding, it ends in a book burning. Like Fahrenheit 451. Perfect way to end. So I do like a lot about this. I really do. I just think with the messaging and like the themes of this, I just really like it. I like a lot of it. So that makes it great for me. Next. Probably one of the guiltiest pleasures I ever have is this being one of my favorites. Because I love the slap. I have mentioned this in other videos if you've watched other videos in the series. I genuinely love this episode. And I don't care. I don't care if that's an unpopular opinion. And I will understand even if you decide to roast me for liking this. Because I also understand. Because this is not everybody's cup of tea. But for me personally, this reaches past the bell curve of absurdity to where it's like frustrating to like, this is too ridiculous not to laugh at. Because this is the most ridiculous shit I think they've genuinely ever done in regards to like, I would argue this is worse than the hug in the terms of like how scandalous it is, I suppose. I would argue that this entire thing is worse than this in like on the shocking level. Cuz I want to know what the writer's room looked like when this idea was pitched of let's have Gumball become so obsessed with needing his ass smacked by Tobias that he will go to the greatest extremes to where it almost kills both of them. But this is so ridiculous. Like what was going on when they decided to pitch this idea? Because I don't care that it's stupid. I just think it's so stupid that it's funny. Because the thing is, this is not really out of character for either Tobias or Gumball, I would argue. Because would Tobias do some fuck ass shit like slapping people on the ass while giving them a high five because he thinks he can and should? Yeah, I think that's believable, at least the way I perceive him. It's Tobias slaps asses to assert his dominance. We don't question why he does this. Because that's the beauty of it. We don't know why. He just is, and we just have to roll with this. We don't need to know why Gumball wants to do this initially, because his character motivation isn't revealed until the last act of the episode, which I don't mind. because it kind of feeds into the absurdity of, like, we do not know why Gumball wants his ass slapped. We really don't. But would he want to do something like that? Perhaps, because he's kind of a weird dude. Because, of course, in the end, we realize he just wanted to feel included. He didn't want to be left out of the fun or whatever. And since Gumball loves attention, he wants to be included in everything. That is easy to believe, because that is, again, some shit he would do. So with whatever happens and after this, it just adds to it, and like, how far is he gonna go for this? Because I firmly believe that we have reached over the bell curve of absurdity the first time he tries to get Tobias to slap his butt. With the scene is so quiet. Like, the only thing you can hear is the squeaking of Gumball's feet on the floor. The rest of it is silent, and I think that is beautiful because it just lets it speak for itself. There's no even like background music. It's just the sound of Gumball's feet on the floor. That's like the most perfectly like capsulated awkwardness I have seen from the show, minus some stuff from the hug. I just love that scene because the way they chose to convey it is just simply perfect. It's like Tobias doesn't know what to say because the silence is so loud. But I would even argue the craziest joke in the entire series. I would argue with my full chest that the craziest joke of the entire series is in this episode. It still counts if he's unconscious, right? As he knocked Tobias out from trying to slap him, and then Darwin shakes his head. And then Gumball takes his limp arm and tries to get him to slap his ass, and then he realizes this is wrong on so many levels. And I'm like, what? Good thing they realized that was bad, but that's still a bit shocking in my opinion. The only reason why this episode works for me is because it is Gumball and Tobias. If it was Gumball and anybody else, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. It'd be too weird. But for some reason, him and Tobias, this just makes sense. Because Gumball is so locked in that it seems like he just doesn't care anymore, and no matter how much Darwin is like trying to reason with him, Gumball is too far in the trenches to go back that he stages an entire setup to get Tobias alone. But even before that, the whole concept of Darwin's like, Gumball, you realize he just might not be enough of a friend to want to do that with you, you know? And then Gumball's like, well, if he's not, I'll make him so close to me that he'll definitely want to slap me. Because it's not the good times, remember. It's the really bad times that bring people together. And I'm like, interesting episode to bring that argument up in. Because, yes, it is the bad times that bring people together, but, you know, it's one of those nuanced conversations, and I just thought, like, well, then I guess Gumball decides to traumatize Tobias back. The whole thing of, like, when he's at the lunch table and, like, trying to coerce Tobias into, like, being his friend, but it's so fucking creepy. And then when Tobias is like, if you don't back off, I'll have to get physical. And then Gumball's like, yes, use your anger. Use your anger. And he's like showing his ass to him. And Tobias is like, I haven't even touched you and I already feel like I need to wash this hand. It is so ridiculous that I can't help but laugh. Because this is like one of the episodes, like, if I was feeling bad, I would put this on to make me laugh again type of thing. Because this is so stupid. This is so stupid. It gets even worse. Because the amount of, like, diabolical jokes in this episode is crazy, because the whole note that Gumball leaves Tobias, thinking that he's Masami. Meet me on the roof. P.S. Clip your nails. That's one of the craziest ones. Like, bro, that's not even subtle. I mean, granted, it took me a few years to figure out what that meant, but it was also because I was a teenager. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant until like 5 years later, and I'm like, oh my god. It leans so hard into like the bromance aspect of it, because even in the song, it's like, you can forget the bromance because we're definitely gonna fucking die up here. But I thought this was interesting just on its own merit, is that there's two separate songs in this episode. The first one was the power ballad about Gumball feeling unslappable, and then this one was, and then the second one is Gumball and Tobias working together to survive up on the roof. So there's two songs in this episode, which I think is just, I don't see that a lot, but they do attempt to like team together to try to get out of this situation that was definitely Gumball's fault. Thinking that it's like, okay, maybe his plan worked too well. I want to know, what was Gumball's original plan of traumatizing Tobias back? Because he left the note in his locker just after he made that epiphany. But everything that happens in the rest of the episode is coincidental because Gumball was stuck up there for 2 days. What was gonna be his plan of action to traumatize Tobias back? Because it happened by accident, but the way he was talking about it, he was gonna do something specifically. So what the fuck was he gonna do on the top of the school roof saying, P.S. clip your nails? I don't think I want to know. And I don't even mind the whole plot twist of when Tobias finally slaps him on the ass, he gets like super offended by it. Like, how could you do this? There's rules in this society, and slapping people's butts is not one of them. It's like, I don't even care that he switched up at the end, because it's like, you know what? Was he gonna ever stick with this? But I think this is so stupid that it's funny. And it makes me laugh. And for that, I think it's great. I don't think in good consciousness I can put it in actual peak with all the other things that will go up here. But I think it can sit comfortably here. Because in my soul it is peak, but in actuality, it's really not. It's really not. But I love it. Okay, next we have something that surprised me. One of the ones that surprised me the most is the detective. I didn't realize how good this was. I think I always liked it, but I think now that I'm older, I think I really appreciate what this is more. The vibe of it, the way it looks specifically, because this episode just looks expensive. I just love the camera work with like the lighting and like the colors and all of that. Like just how this looks, it makes it definitely feel more different than any other episode. Because I like the themed episodes like this, where this is specifically framed as like a like HBO drama series, something like that type of story, where the concept of Gumball and Darwin destroying Daisy is turned into a crime drama type plot that is played extremely straight. There are still jokes, obviously, but it is played as straight as it possibly could. Because Anais, the one who's affected by it the most, is the one narrating it. Definitely an Anais-centered episode, where she's the one narrating it and she is the main character. Where we do see Gumball, Darwin, and Richard. And I just love Anais episodes. And this one is probably my favorite. I think it is my favorite. Because it really gets like in like this kind of nuanced perspective of Anais. Like basically getting into her head, which we don't do a lot. Because it's kind of like the coexistence of like maturity and childlike innocence type of thing. In the case where she takes the destruction of her favorite toy to like a mature degree, like solving a crime of like a murdered loved one or something like that. It's kind of that juxtaposition. It's like we know that this is like in reality not a big deal, and in fact everything's fine in the end. But I just think that we are seeing the things as they happen solely because that's the way Anais feels. It's like being in her first person perspective. I love that. I love that a lot. It gives us just something different to think about. You know, and I feel like that. I think now, like, sugar is like a placebo for, like, drugs or something because they are on another bender of getting high off of Fruit Loops and accidentally destroying Daisy and trying to dispose of the body while their eyes are like bloodshot and they're covered in cereal. Looking back on this, in this series, there's a lot more specific episodes where they're on drugs than I remember. Okay. But, and the whole thing of, like, Anais trying to piece together the story as she's, like, gathered her clues, they show what the scenario could be. But until we get to the truth, because Anais assumes all these different things have happened, it was Darwin. And I thought this was a great choice, is to not have it be Gumball's fault that Daisy was destroyed, because it was Darwin who wanted Gumball to, like, dispose of the body. Because Anais said, like, oh, Darwin's too nice. I think he'd be the one that, like, cries and runs away. You know, it'd be Gumball trying to dispose of the evidence in a shady manner. But actually, it was Darwin that did it. She took Darwin's words at face value, and it's honestly a little hard to detect when you go back on the rewatches. Like, when was the moment that Darwin knew that he was lying to her? We all know it's when he said, like, oh, she's in the basement. But it's like a subtle look on his face and a subtle change of tone that kind of, like, communicates that he's making this up. Maybe I'm seeing things, but I think that there's a slight change in his tone when he goes to lie to her. Knowingly, actually. To save his own butt. Gumball left a long time ago. But the whole thing about her confronting Darwin in the shed, and it's all scary. The severity that this is taken is wonderful. Because even despite all the grittiness that happens, they still managed to stop the garbage truck and get Daisy back and sew her back up, and it's very sweet. And the fact that it does have a happy ending is also nice. This is so well written. I love it, honestly. And I'm honestly glad that I appreciate it more. So that's peak for me. And in a similar vein, we have The Fury. When this first came out, I was quite obsessed with it because I have a lot of drawings of me trying to draw the characters like that. So I think this is cool. Very cool, in fact. But knowing what we know now of kind of like how like the new series like low-key dilutes the power of this episode, if you will. Because if this was the only thing we had, I might be more excited about it. I know, this kind of like, dare I say, something about the new series that kind of ruined the old series for me. There's not a lot. There's really not a lot. But I think this is one of them, making me less excited about The Fury. Because we have seen 2 more episodes to come that kind of dilute the story of this. And let me tell you why. This is peak regardless of all of that, so don't get it twisted. I like it about just as much as the detective, but the way that this episode is written is just amazing. Like the whole thing of the kids think Nicole's indestructible, but there's this one mysterious woman that's gonna make her life a living hell, and the kids simply don't understand why Nicole just don't beat her ass, because they know she could, but something inside her's preventing her from doing that. And the fact that Yuki is connected to Masami, a character we already know, it builds on the lore of characters we already have. The whole thing of how they used to be friends and all that. I like that. And it's like, basically, what I love about this is how much they, like, hype up Nicole. Like, oh, she's the strongest, she's the toughest. She's like a superhero. It's kind of like the mothers, where it's like, our mom's the best mom ever because she's so amazing and nobody is like her. And they just can't fathom the fact that something will stop her. The kids look up to their mother so highly that they don't think that anything can stop her. So when something does, they get scared. Nicole wants to keep the peace. She don't want to do all that. She want to leave that part of her behind. She don't want to involve herself with Yuki. How Yuki found her doesn't matter, but Nicole wants to keep it cool for once in her life. But when Yuki pushes her to the point of, I will give you no choice. It's like lose everything or fight me, and that's when she locks in. But I also found interesting that this is still brought up in other episodes actually, but the whole thing of Yuki being like super into Richard is kind of funny. Not because of like, oh, the juxtaposition is so funny. Him and Nicole are kind of like that already. But the fact that Richard's so not into it, he's just like freaked out by it, but she don't give a fuck is like, okay, she's sexually harassing your husband. Please do something about her. My favorite part of this is obviously the whole fight scene, but actually not only for the beautiful animation, but in what I've come to appreciate to be like the messaging of all this is that Yuki can do everything in her power to be the strongest, to be basically indestructible. She can take all the right classes, learn all the right moves, have all the right teachers. But Nicole will always be stronger than her because she has that authentic type of strength. The type of strength that a fuck ass life is gonna give you. I raised 3 kids and 1 husband. I have been through the most grueling school imaginable, the school of life. So the naturally strong, just from being grinded down by life hard and long enough, those are the strongest fucking people right there. That still choose to stand, that still choose to fight for what matters, despite being crushed 50 million times. And I think that's a hell yeah for me. That's why now I love it so much. It's like, yeah, that's true. The strongest people are the ones that have gone through so much shit, but still can put up a fight. And of course, she does it all for the love of her kids and her family, because her and Yuki discover teamwork when they're able to save the kids from their own destruction, and properly traumatize all the children in the process. But then they forgive each other. They never meant for it to be this way. They never wanted it to be this way. Don't be sorry, I'm sorry. Can we just be friends? If we ended it out on that, if this episode was kept in isolation from everything else, that'd be so impactful. But I would argue the other 2 episodes that feature these two kind of undo, and that's why I kind of, if you watch those other videos, I kind of have a bit of a problem with that. That it's like how Yuki and Nicole continue to be like stereotypical anime villains towards each other. Just to play up on that one simple stylistic trope, not so much the actual lore developed between these two. So they continue to fight and make up, but it seems like with the addition of those, it doesn't feel like that the ending of this episode means as much as it used to. We thought that they forgave each other completely, having to go through all this shit and still learning that we work better together. We've always known that, so why try to hide it? And we will use our strength to save the ones we love the most, okay? That's what they were saying here. But now with all the additional context, it's like Yuki still has it out for Nicole. It's like, what did that mean then? They might forgive a bit, but I feel like this was supposed to be more final. I'm not saying they have a completely peachy relationship. It makes me sad because I do love this story so much. The fact that it got diluted a bit through the reboot, not so much. But in complete isolation, I really like this. Okay, next we have the compilation, which I will say rate the highest out of the 3 we are reviewing today. So, I like this for like certain specific. We're just gonna get out of the way. I like this as much as I do because of the song. It is so sweet. It makes me cry, and I think it's perfect. But the rest of this, I don't know what to feel about, because I just feel like this episode just doesn't know what it wants to do. Because, it's the clip show. It's like a formal clip show episode. It's like the best viral moments or whatever. Where it's like some of the segments feel like they're like, I just feel like none of this is like connected to each other in any of the other examples. Like, it's not so much connected by like a singular idea other than this is like the most, like, the best clips of Elmore or whatever. But I will say, like, the clips by themselves, I think, are more interesting, and that's why I like it more than, like, I don't know, the other 2. Because I do find the individual segments more interesting than, like, the whole concept. But there were, like, a few, like, moments in this that was like, wait a minute. One being when Tobias accidentally got like the live heart in the mail when he thought he was gonna get a phone. That's kind of fucked. But also the grieving. Now, I will fully admit that like when I was younger, like the grieving creepypasta scared the shit out of me, like genuinely. I think I was shook for like at least 2 days afterwards. I don't know where. I think I might have watched a YouTube video about it or something, or like a YouTube retelling of that story or something. I think that's where I found it. I know that it traumatized me because I have some artwork that I made that reflects that, and I'm like, you know what? That's the most like 13-year-old me bullshit I think I've ever done. But so at the time when I saw this, I was like, bruh. It's like the equivalent of that one SpongeBob episode that references Red Mist that had to get censored because it was a bit too much because obviously that was a bit too much. So like them referencing this creepypasta is kind of funny, but also I don't want to remember that. The song is easily the best part of this, as I've said before, and it kind of saves it because it's kind of like where does this fall in with the rest of this as like a theme, but it's so cute that I can't hate. I don't. I'm gonna put these three right next to each other because they're good. It's just like I've said it before. First, I don't really prefer this type of style of episode unless it's like done in a really creative way. But also, it's just like we get. I feel like it's because there's four of them in the season. I feel like if there was like even just any two of these, it would be like fine. But now I'm just like, okay. Next, we have the scam, which is one of. It's peak, obviously. In my heart, it is. So, I always liked this. I really did. Because this is not technically like the Carwin hard launch, okay? It's not even the first time that this is brought up, because mind you, the seeds were planted since season 2. But the fact that this is such a major turning point in like Darwin and Carrie's relationship with each other in like the general sense. This eats horrendously. This is the best Halloween episode. Is that unpopular? I don't know. I like this more than Halloween from season 2, okay? Because there's just so much interesting stuff going on here. But this is my favorite Halloween episode. Because of this whole thing of Gumball's mission to get as much candy as possible by teaming up with Carrie to do some basically glorified magic tricks to have everyone surrender in fear to them and give them their candy so they can have all the candy in town, and it's great. Because I think that is so some. First, that is so some shit Gumball would do, but this is also something I feel like that Carrie would get involved with. Because Carrie wouldn't mind doing some hijinks and messing with people for the love of the game, because that's what she's doing. She wants candy too, but I feel like she just likes messing with people like that. Using her ghostly powers to freak people out. I think that is all well and good. But Darwin's the one that's like, hey, I don't feel right doing this. I don't like stealing from people. Because, of course, Gumball thinks this is all well and good. Carrie doesn't really care, but Darwin's like, can we not? But despite this being against Darwin's morals, Gumball is able to entice him to join in on his fuckery with the hope of being closer to Carrie and letting her possess his body to eat candy. And that's all that convincing Darwin needs to be like, okay, when do we start? It is evident in this episode that Darwin is extremely down bad for Carrie. There's just nothing left to hide after this point. The matchmaker was just the final pour of gasoline to light the whole fire up. But it's so obvious. We knew it was only a matter of time at this point. I may have mentioned, I had mentioned things of the sort when I've talked about other types of Carrie episodes, but I feel like this made me think a bit further about my personal theory of in this show if ghostly possession is a metaphor for sex. I really think that maybe it is. This episode made me consider a bit further in the general sense, not episode specific, but I'm thinking now it's becoming kind of a pattern. And now that I think about it, is if spiritual possession in the show is supposed to be like a metaphor for sex. Kind of like how sugar is like a metaphor for drugs or something. Similar to that. Because what I think is kind of like the idea that Gumball presents of like convincing Darwin to join him. Like you can get close to Carrie, she can possess your body. And possession in that context is like romantic, sexual, probably, because it's very physical. Because Darwin's whole face lights up and he has his daydream about that, and he has no hesitation to join in on his game if it means that he has the potential to get possessed by Carrie. And even when Carrie asks Darwin to like use him for possession, say, "Hey, would you mind if I possess your body for a bit? Take this candy?" And Darwin's like, "Oh yeah, sure, if you want to." It's like it is framed romantically. This possession thing. It makes me think it's supposed to be a stand-in for sex. Because if you remember from episodes like The Ghost, or The Letter, or The Necroprancer, that at least, like, possession in relation to Gumball and Carrie is, like, kind of forceful, rapey, like, sexual assault type of thing. So I'm thinking in the context of Darwin, like, being excited about it and, like, wanting to do this in, like, a romantic sense. If spiritual possession really is supposed to be for sex, is supposed to be a stand-in term for sex. Like how sugar is a stand-in term for drugs. Except I think this is less thinly veiled than, like, the sugar one, but you know what I mean. So I just think that maybe that's the case. And I just think, but even besides all that, the whole vibes of, like, Halloween and them, like, being the Ghostbusters to get candy and their cute costumes. I like Gumball dressed as Beetlejuice and Darwin dressed as the werewolf. It is very cute. And the whole vibe of that and, like, the song that goes with it. I love all of that because it makes sense. I enjoy seeing them interact pleasantly like this. Darwin, Carrie, and Gumball. But of course, the story that they thought they made up was actually true. Even to Carrie's surprise, which is kind of funny, that Gargaroth is real. And he will come to eat everything because he is deprived of true love. And this is an interesting character development thing that happens. Is when they decide to sacrifice the candy to Gargaroth to defeat him, you know? And Gumball is obviously distressed by this because that defeats the purpose of everything he has done. His only motivation is to get the candy. And if he can't have any candy, then this was worth nothing. But then, he is able to snag one last lollipop. But apparently, the candy that he had was not enough. It's not enough to defeat Gargaroth. So Carrie decides, well, the only thing left to do is to sacrifice my life to him. In the fact of arranged marriage. Like, I will be your wife if it means that you'll stop destroying things. And this breaks Darwin completely. He is crying as he's watching this happen, as Carrie doesn't want to do this either. When Darwin says, "Why did she have to be the one that was sacrificed?" He is broken not only for the loss of Carrie in the fact of her losing herself in this marriage she never wanted or whatever, But he wouldn't even have gotten a chance to have her in any capacity if she's married to this eldritch being. He has loved her all along, but he can't have her due to reasons that are selfless for her but are devastating for both in ways that neither of them fully know. I know, right? That's so cool. But Gumball sees this, and he's like, I will put aside my selfishness for this one moment because I can't stand to see my brother like this. So he has his moral decision of, do I keep the lolly for myself or do I sacrifice it to have Darwin have a chance at love? And of course he sacrifices the lolly because that would be the equivalent of Mr. Krabs selling SpongeBob for 62 cents. It would be the vibe of that, and Gumball is better than that. So he very reluctantly sacrifices his candy to make Gargaroth finally explode. And everyone's happy. The town's happy, Carrie's happy, Darwin is happy. Gumball is emotionally checked out at this point. He's like, whatever, get me out of here. I'm sick of this shit. I've had to do all of this. I did all of that work. I had to go through all of that bullshit just to not get an ounce of candy. Due to shit I can't control. Fuck this. So he leaves. And he pulls Darwin away with him. Even though him and Carrie are about to have a sweet moment. I love the way they ended it. Knowing what is to come. But in the end, Gumball will always have Darwin's back. And he will care about people he cares about. Because he not only did that for Darwin, but he probably also felt for Carrie, because he never wanted that to happen. But it was mostly for Darwin, I firmly believe. Peak and last. But oh, certainly not least. In fact, this is my favorite episode. I am so pissed that I can't talk about the disaster and the rerun in the same video, but the laws of how these seasons are set up are reserving me to only talk about the disaster today. But truly, can one exist without the other? No. The story they tell collectively is the entire picture. I have an extremely specific memory with this one, and I keep hold of it because I have a entry in my diary about me reviewing this episode for the first time. But I have a specific memory of this. When it first came out, I'm not exactly sure if it was as it was airing, or if I was watching like the version that my dad recorded on like our cable box. I don't know which one it was. But I was seeing it for the first time. I think I got home from school or something like that. And I know specifically that my family was cooking dinner in the kitchen that was like right next to the living room. And they were like calling me like, Cheese, you have to come to dinner. And I'm like, I just need a minute, bro. Because I was in the middle of watching this for the first time. And I was like, I've never seen anything quite like that. The storytelling this presented, everything that this presented. Because up to this point, Rob is a threat, okay? The bus has confirmed that Rob is a threat. Even in the same season, the Nemesis has kind of confirmed that Rob is a threat. Gumball knows that Rob can be a threat. But this is the time when Gumball realizes that Rob is nothing but a threat. Because although, in the bus, Rob was completely locked in on blowing up an entire school bus full of his peers to prove that he's evil to fulfill his purpose. He is not against killing people up to this point. He is not. He has tried to kill people before. But what is done in the disaster specifically is extremely unique angst to Gumball specifically. Because as he has vowed, I will destroy you and everyone you love. And he is not going to stop until he does so. When he gets hold of the unfathomable power of the Universal Remote. The remote that controls the universe. So he's known this before, like the state of the world, but now he's more acquainted with how it works and how he can manipulate it for his own benefit. Because it answers the question of, when given godlike powers, what will you do with them? Will you be responsible, or will you let it corrupt you? In this case, it's corrupting the hell out of Rob. He gets excited when he realizes the unfathomable powers that he possesses. So much so that he disintegrates the awesome store van like the fucking building inspector from Smile and Friends turned into sand. I don't know. With no doubt in his mind, is he going to use this unfathomable power to do harm, specifically to Gumball. Because he knows Gumball very well, apparently, because he knows all the right ways to ruin his life that would hurt the most. It's not so much like it's not like so much before when he was just like setting up booby traps for him and shit, or like wanting to run him over or something. Like, like the average means of wanting to take somebody out. But in this specific case, he didn't just want to take Gumball out. Yes, that was the end game, but he wanted him to suffer. He wanted him to suffer for a long time. And he wanted him to suffer by piece losing everything he's ever loved. I will destroy you and everyone you love means I will peel your loved ones away from you bit by bit until there's nothing left, and I'm the only one that can seal your fate, and your ass is going in the void. Because Rob wants to replace Gumball. Rob needs to be the main character for himself to feel complete. He needs to feel like he accomplished something. He needs to feel like he fulfilled his destiny. And he will, at this point in the plot, he will do it, but he will do it by any means necessary. And he will do it in the way he sees fit, of slowly killing Gumball's life right before his eyes. Because first, he literally almost kills him by having all the cars gang up on him and have him crash into each other. And having the incident blamed, he gets blamed for it because of the window, but no. Of course it wasn't his fault. It's like in The Signal. Of course it wasn't his fault. It was just a misunderstanding. He then realizes that something is wrong. Because he knows damn well the window thing was not his fault. But then when other things start happening, like the captions when he's trying to talk to Darwin, and Nicole and Richard being too candid with each other and all of that, all the weird things that happen, the glitches in the simulation, okay? The glitches in the simulation that ruin his life in ways that he can't even fathom or control. He just watches helplessly as all this happens. He desperately tries to fix it, but of course there's nothing he can do. Until he realizes who is behind this. In the way we got here, to this day, when I rewatched it again, it still shook me. The moment that, both back then and still today, that kind of is like the final blow, if you will. The final Gumball fully gains consciousness of the state of the world is the moment when Rob makes Gumball push Penny off the ledge of the second story of the mall. She breaks through the glass. She's about to fall to her death. It's slow mode to perfection, because it is the moment that Rob decides to show himself, as in, it was I that was behind all of this, 'cause I told you I will destroy you and everyone you love. Between the moment Penny starts falling and right up until Rob opens up the void with his remote. One of my favorite moments of all time right there. Because we know it gets bad the moment when Rob changes, like, the settings, like the picture settings on the screen. Because to me, what makes this episode hold such a memory with me is because this visually looks different from everything else, you know? The standard definition frame, kind of it's not washed out, it's just a bit desaturated. This is the most serious that the show has ever gotten. I firmly believe it. these 2 episodes, nothing is played as straight as this episode, but this is the most straight they've ever played a plot, and you can tell. You can definitely tell. Not because there is no jokes. There are still jokes in the midst of all of this complete chaos. They still manage to throw in like funny, like actually funny jokes in there that don't really break up the tension. I'm thinking specifically like when Gumball and Rob are fighting, and then like they change to like the sensual music, and then Gumball's like, this gives it a whole different vibe to the situation. It's like, that doesn't necessarily break from the tension, it just kind of reminds us where we are, okay? Remind you that this is still Gumball, and they're still gonna make a sex joke in the middle of a death battle, so that's just how it goes. There's still moments of jokes that, like, pierce through this, so it's not completely depressing, but it is. This is so heavy. Like, again, this is such unique angst. It's like, your brother hates you, your little sister runs away, your parents are gonna get divorced, and your girlfriend's gonna die. Okay? And you are left with absolutely nothing but me. So I'll get full opportunity to just get you out of the picture now that you have nothing left anyway. The angst of that is crazy. Just on its own. Rob knows. This is why I say Rob knows Gumball so well that he knows the exact manner in which he's going to torture him to get the most suffering out of him. Because he's not going to let him off of a simple shot or simple slice. He's going to make him watch. He's going to make him watch this happen. It's kind of like Rob is making him, like, slowly die, if you will. Not die physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. He wants to get him to a point where he's so down that he might submit to him. Or become so weak that Rob will have the upper hand and just take him out, you know. The moment when Gumball realizes that Rob was the one, it's like, it was you! It was you, motherfucker! He's like, Gumball's on the brink of tears. He's like begging for it. It's like, why would you do this? Why would you do this? And then Rob's like, I wasn't fucking around, Gumball. I warned you. One of my favorite beats of dialogue ever done is when Rob says, I warned you, and then reveal himself. That's one of my favorite moments in the whole show, is that. Because, like, the timing of it, the tone in which it was said, oh my god. It invoked everything it meant to do when Gumball realizes, oh, it was you. Of course it was you. Who else would it be but you? He's not gonna be a coward this time. Gumball, this is probably the one of the genuinely courageous things he does, is despite a losing battle, pretty much. Because you have Rob in the remote versus just you. So you're just gonna jump headfirst into this seemingly losing battle without a second thought because everyone you've ever loved is up on the line. He don't care what it's gonna take. He's gonna tackle Rob and fist fight him to the ground over this. And for his life. Defend for his life and the lives of everybody else. Beat the shit out of Rob. He wouldn't have done that in any other circumstance. This is my favorite fight scene of ever. This is my favorite fight scene, is that. Even more than anything that happens in the rerun. That one, the first one, is the most important to me. It's basically, once he realizes that this was never a game, and perhaps his own actions may have, and it was his fault. It was his fault that Rob became this way, because of the way he treated him. So once he fully gains consciousness of, he has finally realized the consequences of his actions. They are formed right here, and they have impacted everyone he's ever loved. And this whole world's gonna fucking suffer if he doesn't recognize that, because he is looking at his own creation. He's looking at the monster. A monster that's very intimate with the type of pain Gumball can experience. So when Rob throws the remote into the void and is like, go get it, that's evil. That's genuinely evil. As if it wasn't evil to do all this shit in the first place, which it definitely is. Throwing the remote in the void and saying, go get it. What is Gumball gonna do? Not go get it? He hesitates, obviously, because this is the scariest thing he's ever done in his life. But he's like, I can't be a coward anymore. I need to go get it and fix this, because if not, we are all going to die. This is literally life or death. We are all going to die, even if it means I have to limp over the edge of existence and fall in a kind of a pathetic way. There is no choice. Rob didn't give him a choice. There is technically a choice. Gumball could choose to not go into the void. He has free will, technically. But Rob put him in such an impossible emotional situation that there's nothing else he could do. Where his love for everything overrides his pride. And his embarrassment and all of the negative emotions he feels about himself, whether he thinks he's a loser, a coward, whoever, weak. It don't matter what he thinks about himself. It really don't. He just knows there's only one thing I have to do, and I will do everything in my power to change that. So he fist fights Rob as a result of that. So of course he's going into the void to get that remote. And of course, like the hero he has been the whole time, he finds a way to get back to reality by rewinding existence. And it was to be continued. Because after the rewind, it just ends. And I'm so upset that I'm not gonna talk about the rerun right now because I'm so in the mood to talk about it. This is evil work. This is evil work. But I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. This is perfect for me in like every aspect. Like, I don't think I would change a damn thing about this. So, fuck yeah. But that's it. That's season 4. We are all done. And surprisingly, we have so much good stuff going on here. We have like literally some of my all-time favorites and so much good. Like look at this. This is so good. Yes, there's like a lot of stuff that's just like either we don't talk about that or just kind of like mid. There's still so much to love about it. There is so much to love about it because as I've said before, season 4 is nostalgic for me specifically because that's when I started watching the show. But there's some genuine like great storytelling moments and all of that. Then that leaves us to season 5, which is another season I'm very nostalgic over because I've watched a lot of it. So I am very interested to see what we're going to deal with in season 5. But I'm specifically excited so we can finish talking about this 2-part episode. So please subscribe to the channel so you can hear me talk more bullshit because I've been yapping for way too long. That will be all for today, so I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!